there's a photo here in our office. I hate it, but it's this photo of like this desert, and like volcanic rock has like gone over the desert. And then at the very end of this, you could see this mountain in the back. And I think of that journey, that photo, as the journey that I'm on every day. It's like walking barefoot over miles of volcanic rock, only to get to a mountain that you now have to scale and get over. And there's no telling what's on the other side of that mountain. That is entrepreneurship. And so what drives me to walk across that volcanic rock and get to the mountain? It's just like, I don't know, there's no other way.
Startups with Stu is a podcast for anyone living or wanting to live the startup life, either as a founder or a team member. Your host, Stuart Draper, was a 9-time Inc. 5000 honoree before age 40. This show dives deep into the exhilarating world of entrepreneurship with guests that are seeking advice from Stu for their startup, or business owners that want to share their entrepreneurial journey. Listeners always walk away with actionable ideas of what to do to take their startup to the moon. Startup life can feel like a roller coaster ride. And with Startups with Stu, you're likely to turn your roller coaster ride into a rocket ship ride. Get ready to uncover the secrets to startup success from visionary founders and savvy investors who've transformed groundbreaking ideas into thriving ventures.
This episode is brought to you today by PodUp. PodUp.com is the leading all-in-one AI-powered podcasting software. If you've ever considered having a podcast, want to get started, go to podup.com and check it out. I produce my podcast, use a variety of tools and producers that help me get everything done that I'm doing. Podallies.com is the agency I choose. If you're interested in having a podcast, you don't want to do it yourself through podup.com, I highly recommend that you go check out podallies.com and schedule a strategy call with one of their production specialists. They will be able to help you and think through everything you need to before you get started on your journey as a podcaster. Welcome to another episode, folks, of Startups with Stu. I'm Stuart Draper, your host, and we help take your startup to the moon by giving you advice, information, and access to mentorship via founders like the one we have with us today, Mr. Brett Farmiloe, founder of formerly Turkle, now featured.com. So Brett, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, great to be here, Stu.
So Brett, tell us about Featured. What does Featured do, and why should startups and founders consider using it?
Yeah, so Featured helps you get featured in the media. So we provide exposure for experts and content for publishers to create this ultimate win-win. And so basically how it works is publishers ask questions on featured.com. We invite vetted experts to answer those questions. We'll select the best answers, put that into an article, and that article gets published on the publisher site. So ultimately, experts are able to share their expertise and build visibility for themselves and their businesses, and publishers are able to really scale their content production.
Okay, so a publisher. As a founder, I could be a publisher, right? Because I have a website, I got a blog.
Yeah, publishers are typically media companies like Fast Company. They're brands with blogs like GoDaddy or Zapier. Or we found traction with member-driven organizations like the Society for Human Resource Management. All of those type of organizations want to get insights from their stakeholders and prospective customers. And so asking the right question attracts and unlocks a lot of new knowledge.
Okay, I understand. That's awesome. So what does it cost to use Featured?
So it's a freemium B2B SaaS business model. Anyone can answer up to 3 questions a month at no cost. And then if you want unlimited answer submissions, then it's $49 a month. It gets down to $39 a month if you pay annually. And then we do have a business plan that starts at $99 a month. And that allows you to not only submit unlimited answers, but it also allows you to submit bylined articles. So you could essentially write an article, submit it to a bunch of different publishers, and get featured in that regard as well.
Awesome. So if I want to get in Fast Company, I can come to you guys and get the help I need to be featured. That's cool. And Fast Company is basically saying, hey, I need an expert on XYZ, and publicizing that via featured.com. And it gives me an opportunity to say, hey, I got information about entrepreneurship. I could speak on that. And then I give a quote basically that gets included on Fast Company, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like, I mean, basically sourcing is an infinite problem in media, getting connected with someone who has real insights to offer readers. And so whether that's Fast Company or anybody else, they could be looking just for a single quote for an article to either, push a story across the finish line. You also see a lot of like HubSpot, for example, they're a publisher of ours. They use Featured a lot for content refreshes. So they're going back, looking at the last 6 years of content creation, really invested a lot into that time period. And now they're refreshing that with more up-to-date information with a lot of the stuff that Google's pushed with EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust, and really featuring human expert voices in articles versus a lot of the synthetic AI-generated stuff that you're seeing take hold today.
Fantastic. Okay. So as a founder, if you're listening in today, I want to make sure you understand the power of building credibility. You have an idea. You've started a business. Great. You want people to know about it. They have to know that you have to get the word out somehow, some way. One of those ways is to share your expertise, what you know about what you know. Go share that. If you do that, it's going to lead to new opportunities, and you never know what those opportunities are until you're in the game and playing. And you should dedicate some of your time every day to building your personal brand and building your expertise, in my opinion. So,
yeah. And that's actually the backstory for how Featured got started. I ran a digital marketing agency for 10 years. We serviced more than 500 small businesses over the course of that time. And the thing that I learned is that all of these small business owners, founders, have an abundance of expertise to share. They know their business in and out. They could talk about, whatever it is all day. They just don't have anywhere to share it. And so we actually created Featured as a way to get our clients featured in the media. We, for example, one of our clients was like an eyelash extension supply company. And so we created questions that would bring out her expertise, look to get those quotes featured in the media. That started to get more traction than the agency itself. So sold the agency at the end of 21, been focused on Featured for the last 3 years. But that is the backstory, that all your listeners have expertise about something. They just need an outlet to share that. So that's really what Featured looks to do, is unlock that knowledge.
Awesome. Okay. So the game is changing in the world that you're in. There used to be a website, Help a Reporter Out, also known as Haro. Peter Shankman was the founder of that. He's gone and so he sold that business. Since he sold it, it kind of has like had a decline, right? Brett, do you want to tell us a little bit about that and kind of how you're thinking about your market in general?
Yeah, well, at the time of this recording, so just the backstory with Help Reporter Out, as you said, Peter started it, I think like 2007, 2008, got acquired in 2010. The person or the company who acquired it merged and became Cision in 2014. And flash forward 10 years later, as of a couple days ago, Cision has officially discontinued Help Reporter Out. So that's, we'll see what happens with it at this point. But the moral of the story is that still people have expertise to share on one side, and on the other side, sourcing is an infinite problem that publishers and media companies need to solve. And so whether that's Featured or any other service, making that connection is super important for both sides. It's beneficial for both sides, so it deserves to exist and really, unlock, unlimited amounts of knowledge for folks.
Yeah, I feel like, Brett, this is a really cool opportunity for you. Like, that dying is like a huge milestone in PR land. And I totally agree with you. Experts still have knowledge to share, and publishers still need experts to come and share it on their platforms. Like, that's not going away, even with AI, because the thing that AI lacks is the experts. All right. And it can go and find what experts have said in the past, but what it can't do is talk about what experts are sharing today as well. And so that's an opportunity for you. But let's talk about that. Like, how are you thinking about AI and what AI is doing to your game?
Yeah, I think that AI it's disrupted it completely. I think that the original founding premise for our company was to be a decentralized Quora. Quora being a question and answer site. And the thought is that, why is Quora outranking HR.com for a human resources related question? And the fact of the matter is that HR.com didn't have the content that would satisfy, whatever that query was. So our founding premise was, well, how do we redirect all of that organic search traffic over to the publishers who have expertise by featuring real experts? And so what AI has done is just disrupted everything in terms of the search landscape. We've moved now towards more of a zero-click environment where searchers are getting the answers to questions right then and there within their experience, and then diving deeper into it. And so what AI has done is not only just like kind of shrunk the publishing landscape and disrupted a lot of business models for media, it's also presented a lot of opportunity in terms of how are you generating the right questions to ask? How are you identifying the right experts to ask those questions to? How can now experts, with the biggest constraint being time, how can AI help unlock some of that time so that they still can respond to that question in a way that still matches, their level of expertise and communicating that across? So there's a lot of different moving parts, on both sides of the marketplace and then the general ecosystem. And I think it's still playing out. Like we're here at the end of 2024, looking ahead at 2025. I think that it starts to take shape. You're probably going to start to see some real players emerge that are monetizing that really well. You're probably going to see a lot of publishers innovate on their business models, and I think that we're right in the core of it all.
Awesome. It's so cool to hear how well you can speak to what's going on in the landscape. As a founder, you really have to know your market, what's happening, and have your head up. Like you got a nose to the grindstone, somehow simultaneously poke your head up and look around and go, what's going on everywhere around me, and know that space. I think you can use Google Alerts as a cool tool to help with giving you a feed of what's happening based on certain topics that you want Google Alerts to be sharing with you. Anytime someone's talking about your own brand, you want to be alerted of that. So Google Alerts is a really cool tool. Go check it out. Use it to help you. But I invested in Brett, by the way, you guys. I'm an early investor in featured.com and excited about that. So that's a little disclaimer for the podcast today. I bet on two things, not just the idea that expertise matters. Business owners and publishers need it, and they're going to use it, and they need a platform like Featured, and the Featured platform is easy to work with, really cool. Go check it out. There's a freemium model here, so you can check it out for free, which is awesome. And then it's worth paying for. Stu Kent, my last business that I was the CEO of, is a customer, happily using it. So go check out featured.com. Brett, let's talk now about where you wanted to, what your vision is for the future, what you're trying to do with Featured. Is the goal take the VC route? Is the goal to go public someday, maybe private equity? Is the goal even exit or hold forever? Where are you at in your head with that?
Yeah, for sure. And first of all, thanks for the support and belief. I think that you invested in us a couple years ago when we were Turkle.io and rebranded to featured.com. So just for the listeners out there, Stu's been awesome to have on the cap table as a mentor, and definitely asked you some questions over the years that have helped me unlock some different things. So thank you. In terms of vision for the company, it's right on our about page. Our vision, our mission is to unlock the world's knowledge. And so for us, we looked at going back to the original founding premise of the company was really to compete with Quora. And if you look at Quora and their path, they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, VC backed, and trying to create a ginormous company. For me, it's always been about that. It's about how do we create a company that really drives value for all stakeholders, whether that's the experts are answering questions, the publishers are featuring that content, the ultimate reader who's consuming that content, that yourself and everyone that's on the cap table. How do we maximize shareholder value? And how do we really create a company and a product that's novel? And so to your point, like, how do you stay on the grind and keep your head on a swivel? I think the swivel is really just staying aligned with the mission of, is this moving us closer towards unlocking new knowledge? And then simultaneously being on the grind to recognize and being realistic about what's happening in the market. You mentioned about Help Reporter Out, discontinuing operations. And so that's a good signal that maybe that market is actually really small. And so it would be irresponsible for me to come out and say, hey, we're going to be $100 million AR company. And what would justify that? Because the market is shrinking and is already pretty small from a journalist perspective. So basically, it's how do you expand the market? How do you make it so that you could accomplish all those different objectives, increase shareholder value, and really take the core offering of what you built and make that valuable to others. So that's kind of where my head's at right now, is like, we're doing really well in the market. People are really receptive. We're growing fast. But at the same time, if that's the end objective, is there any adjacent space that you want to consider that aligns with what your company mission is?
It's a tool for everyone today, right? Like, it can work for a lot of different people. And so how do you target the right people when that's the case? But before we dive into market and thinking about addressing the right market, who is the right market, I had an aha moment. Brett talked about he wants to do well for his, the publisher, the expert, the reader, and those as can all be paying customers at some level. The reader maybe not so much, but he said the investor last, and I'm the investor. Dang it, why am I last? The fact is, as an entrepreneur, if you deliver well, first and foremost for your customers, they will pay you for the help you're giving them, and they'll keep paying you for the help you're giving them. And if you do that and do that really well, you'll find a way for the investors to win. So I think a lot of times people want to think investor first, and they're so focused on returns for investors and how to be the most profitable, or how to just grow. That's all important. You have to have that in mind. And I like that Brett pointed out, like, all the things he has to try to make wins for everyone. If you help the customer win first, everything else gets solved. So you'll have people that are willing to pay you and keep paying you. You need that if you ever want to give returns to your investors. So great insight and really good vision that you have in that regard, Brett, as far as the order of who you help and how you help them. I like it.
Yeah, no, thanks for that call out. And like, just to add on to it, that's like the most important thing that I do on a weekly basis. I try to talk with anywhere from 10 to 20 customers a week that, are at various different stages. I love to look at the people who have just signed up, and I'll just like send a handwritten note to them, like just wanting to connect on a Zoom call. And for a lot of people that blows them away, and it's like, oh yeah, like I'll take a call, like just heard about Featured and, would love to. And the insights that I'm able to gather from people in those conversations are just, they help shape the product and help you find product market fit faster. So, getting close to the customers ultimately, helps unlock that shareholder value. So great call out.
There is such power in the Featured brand. I gotta believe that brand can do really well in your market. You mentioned that the market is shrinking. I think it's evolving more than it's shrinking, right? Like, brands now more than ever see the power of being online. They see the power of having expertise. That's why you see the podcast world exploding so much right now, is everyone's going, I need to be seen as an expert, and running a podcast, hosting a show, that helps me do that. So I think it's just evolving, right? Tell me,
yeah, that's a better word.
Tell me how you see the market evolving for companies like Featured.
Yeah, well, that's a better word to use, evolving instead of shrinking, because ultimately, look at the problem. The problem is that businesses need to attract customers. Like, in order to attract customers, the customer has to be aware of your product or solution. So the evolution is, well, where are customers, and how do they want to consume content? And so, today, I think that 2024 LinkedIn is just really taking a hold on everyone. So a lot of customers are hanging out on social platforms still. The type of content that they're consuming might be audio, might be video, still might be text, still might be articles. So for Featured, we've really tried to solve questions and answers in a text form over the last 3 years. That's been a huge challenge. And, looking ahead at the roadmap, it's like, well, there's all different types of forms of content that you could ultimately do. AI assisted or not, text to audio is really interesting. Text to video is really interesting. whether that's human created or AI assisted. So yeah, I think that it evolving is a great word.
Yeah. So as it evolves, I think what becomes important is deciding what part of the market you want to really go after. And you also deal with something that a lot of other founders deal with. It's the chicken and egg question, right? Like, do I get publishers first? Do I get experts first? What's the balance? Like, that's not easy either. So tell me a little bit more about, I guess that's two questions in one, bad hosting here on my part, but like, so let's address them first. Oh geez, Brett, I lost my.
Here, I'll jump in with
here.
my I'll jump in with my first instinct here. I've seen a lot of founders do marketplaces, and in the marketplace, there's always the hard side of the marketplace, and that's 100% where you need to focus on as a founder. You've got to have some traction in the hard side of the marketplace, because once you have that, the chickens will come. You will start to attract the easy side of the marketplace if you have the hard side. So, for us, the hard side is the supply, it's the publishers, it's the websites that people want to get featured on. And so very early on, we read a case study with a company called Cameo. Cameo does like celebrity video messages and stuff like that. And their start was really interesting to me because they focused on D-list celebrities. And they basically found D-list celebrities that were super important to like 10 people on the planet. And so if they were able to get that person on Cameo, those 10 people on the planet would think it's the coolest thing ever, and it would start to build up that marketplace. And so Cameo's ultimately, gone from D-list celebrities to Snoop Dogg, and, like they've been able to grow the marketplace that way. For us, it was human resources. I started, my career in HR or in the, recruitment space. And so the publishers that we were able to attract were super important to like HR professionals. And so that's kind of how we got started and how we started to get some traction in the marketplace. And now, we've got over 1,000 publishers that are using Featured.
1,000 publishers that include the likes of Fast Company and others. To give us some of the names of those that you're working with.
Yeah, I mean, you could see anyone from media companies like Fast Company and Inc. And Forbes. You could see brands with blogs like GoDaddy, Zapier, HubSpot. And then you could see a lot of like, member-driven companies like the American Marketing Association, University of Arizona, some of those institutions.
That is so cool, man. It's really good traction that you're building. Brett has doubled his business year over year, you guys, and he's really starting to gain traction. That is so critical. I love that you pointed out that you were able to case study a business similar to yours to understand like the chicken and egg thing, which one comes first, and then how you were going to handle that. So how did you get some of your first wins? Those are never easy.
Yeah, pretty much just relationships in your network. Like you got to go to the people who trust you, because really when you're starting out, you don't have a lot to really stand on. So for us, like I actually remember how basically it's like you got to validate your product somehow, and you need some people that you trust that trust you to come along for it. When we first started, we validated the product. Like basically one of the validations was, will people answer a question? And so we gave them questions without anywhere to even get it published. Like now, when you go to featured.com, you're like, oh, Forbes is asking this, so if I answer, I'll get featured on Forbes. Simple. In the beginning, we just asked people questions and had nowhere to even like put it. And so that was a huge validation for us. And then, being able to now go to a publisher and say, hey, we want to produce an article for you. We don't know who's going to be featured, and then scramble to recruit the right experts. So, a lot of it's grit, a lot of it's hustle, a lot of it's faking it and then delivering so that you fulfill your promise. But yeah, you got to go to the people that trust you.
Yeah. Being able to go to some publishers and say, hey, we've got people that are giving us answers to questions. Would you be willing to utilize our basic number of question answerers or experts that are answering questions in your future content? Like that was the beginning of it. That's how you went and found the publishers, huh?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, also, I'm a big fan of the business model canvas with Steve Blank. And the business model canvas essentially has right in the middle value proposition, and then on the side, customers. And product market fit is having that value proposition really defined for that specific set of customers. And so you also learn a lot as you go through this journey of who's the right customer that we should focus on and what is that value prop that really gets them going. So, for us, initially we thought that, we would be around one certain customer, one certain value prop. Man, you just throw Post-its on it and you tear it off and write a new value prop as you go along. And that's probably the best way to build a business is having it written on a Post-it note on a business model canvas until you really start to make revenue.
Mm-hmm. So today, how are you growing? What's working to grow, and what things are you trying to figure out to grow faster now?
Yeah, I think it's asking the right people the right questions at the right time in the right format. And so there's been a lot of A/B testing to figure out what that equation looks like. And then there's been a lot of thought around how do you get traction around the hard side of the marketplace. And so for us to grow, we have to grow the hard side of the marketplace. And we've now developed an engine that would ignite the easier side. And then using the model essentially to prove and convert, that's how you grow the business. So, I think that, again, it's going back to what's the engine of growth that's going to acquire customers on both sides. And one side's going to be harder to acquire than the easier one. How do you try to automate as much as possible the easier one and really focus your attention on the hard one?
The focus your attention on the hard one is so critical. That's where the founder has to spend their time. Elon Musk talked about how bad it sucks as a founder or CEO, because your job is always looking at the crappiest parts of your business and the things that are hurting the worst, because you have to go focus there. And none of the stuff that's working really matters to you. You have to go to the places where things are not working and go work to resolve those constantly. And so I like that you pointed out the hard, like you're focusing on the hard. Okay. Taking a quick break from the episode. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to take a second and thank the great team at Pod Allies that helps me produce this podcast. Startups with Stu is not an easy undertaking. It takes a lot of work and team power to get this thing done. So the team I use for my podcast, podallies.com, go check them out. If you are considering a podcast, if you've thought you have a dream for a show and you want to go make it happen, go to podallies.com and book a strategy call today. I promise you won't regret it. Speaking of the show or shows, let's get back to Startups with Stu in this episode. Forgive my interruption, but if you're interested, go check out podallies.com. As far as the market, let's say that you've got to get journalists, right, to want to ask questions of your experts in the featured marketplace. What percentage of journalists know of featured.com? Like if you were to go look at Wall Street Journal's list of all of their journalists, what percentage of them even know about Featured today? And how do you go get in front of them?
Yeah. So I think this actually goes back to the comment I made about the business model canvas and having the right target customer. Recently, I flew all the way across the country, went from Scottsdale, Arizona to Atlanta, Georgia, spent 3 days at a conference that was designed for journalists. And I sat there and I talked to every journalist and listened to their problems and listened to the solutions that they use, and basically found out like, hey, from a Post-it note perspective, maybe this isn't the right target customer for what we've built with Featured.
Is that because one of the things you learned from them and listening was, we don't have that hard of a time getting experts to want to talk to it, to get quotes, or what?
Mainly because it looks more so at where you're having a lot of success. And the success that we're having is with content marketing teams like HubSpot that ask 30 questions a week and use quotes to refresh their content. We're having success with a company like Wix, who is looking for full-length articles that feature all of these different expert insights. And there's real traction there. And on the journalist side, it's a completely different persona. And the only reason why you learn this is because you talk to them and you find out that they need a left-handed child psychologist that lives in San Luis Obispo that can comment in the next 30 minutes on a Zoom call about the earthquake that just happened and the effect it'll have on kindergartners that were in school that day. Like, So, so, you know, like you look at the value prop of where featured business model is, we help people get featured in the media. What happens if you do all of that work and scramble and try to get someone in the next 30 minutes? Or you're going to get one child psychologist featured. So, and you're going to have to really bust hard to find that person and to get them ready and to make sure. And so all that to say, journalists are a subset of the customer persona that we serve. But it's not the primary and only one. There's a definite need, you know, to be featured in, you know, some really, really prominent publications that these journalists represent. It's a very hard market to serve. And so we're figuring that out. You know, 3 years in, we've got some products that are going to be coming out here in 2025 that are designed to get a quote or an expert in 30 minutes or less. That's essentially the bar that has been set. But we've had a lot of success in servicing, you know, publishers who need content so they could grow their business and grow their websites.
So what are the main things journalists do today to get it in 30 minutes or less? To me, I'm like, well, yeah, Quora exists, Medium exists. I can go find an expert, find what they said there, and I don't even have to talk to them. I can just steal what they say. I say steal, but I can go and cite what they've said there legally, and it's helpful and good content, right? So
yeah, if the goal is 30 minutes or less because they're on deadline, or maybe they have a self-imposed deadline and they're like, look, I got to break out for the weekend and go to the beach. Like I got to turn this assignment in so I could get paid. You know, that's 30 minutes or less, you know, type of constraint. Yep. And so, yeah, it's like, hey, I've got my own existing Rolodex that I could hit up Stu and get a comment in 30 minutes. And then I could go to the beach, you know, stuff like that I think that their own existing network is really strong. Depending on the organization, there's usually an existing internal expert directory that could be referenced. There's alternative platforms they could source on. There's LinkedIn, you know, there's Twitter, there's all types of stuff that is designed for that. So again, I think that it's also, as a founder, it's looking at the competition. It's thinking about what really makes you different and really like going in the opposite direction so you could create more value for, you know, the customers that you're servicing.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I guess where I start rabbit holing my own thoughts as you're talking about this, Brett, it's like, okay, so what are we identifying then as like the paths to the real growth here? Like, okay, it's the HubSpots of the world. It's the companies that they want to be a platform of content, of new content, fresh content all the time. Like, and if that's the case, like, where are they? Where do we go to get in front of them? Like when I was growing StuKent, right? I knew, like, I help marketing professors, and marketing professors, they go to the American Marketing Association conference every year, and they have 2 big events. And so if I go sponsor those events, like, I know that's for sure one place where I can get in front of them. Where do you go get in front of them? Like, who are the right people to go get in front of to grow bigger and faster? You know?
Yeah. I think that for the most part, you know, it's not writing off that persona that we were just talking about. It's part of the growth plan, and you need those type of publications to succeed as a platform like us. But, you know, from a growth perspective, I think that there's 150, 200 million websites that exist that need fresh content. And how do you tap into that number? And so I think probably the most effective way is going to be tapping into trust via partnerships. So, rather than fight that uphill battle of one by one, you know, getting from 1 to 10 to 100, how do you just get to 100 with a trusted partnership? So I think that that's, you know, part of the expansion strategy for us.
Okay. So trusted partnerships, that's digital marketing agencies. That's like, who are those trusted partnerships?
I've got an idea, and I don't really want to share it here in case our competitors are listening. So,
I love it. Way to be wise. So, there. Yeah, I think it's good to have some discretion in the things you choose to share and not share. I like that.
Listen, this is my favorite thing to do as a founder, is listen to podcasts that my competitors are on. And just, you know, I love that. So now that's in the back of my head. You know, if we're talking about our secret sauce for 26 and 27, like, I think that when we do a podcast 3 years from now, we'll revisit this. Let's play it back, and then we'll see if it works.
We'll see if it worked. I like it. Well, it's good to have these up your sleeve, and it's good to have lots of them. It takes throwing a lot of things out there, spitballing and putting it on the wall and seeing what sticks. You have to do a lot of that if you ever want to find what's going to win and gain you real traction. You just keep testing and trying. So far, Brett, you've kept a really small team. Talk about the team you've built, why it's the right team, how you're thinking about growing your team, if you are planning on growing your team. I like the idea of small teams and staying scrappy, but tell me a little bit about that.
So team of 7 right now, three software engineers, product manager, a couple people that service both sides of the marketplace, and myself. We're 6 of us are in AZ, one of them's in Charlotte. And the craziest thing, having ran a digital marketing agency, which is a really service-based business, versus a SaaS company, is like, and tonight we have our holiday party. We're all going to go and celebrate the year. And I was thinking about this, man. I was like, everyone that's there, we haven't had anybody leave our company in over a year and a half, which is crazy to me, because going from the service side of the business, I had turnover like every 3 months, man. You got to bring somebody in and train them up, and they leave and they go start the competing business and all this stuff. That was a mess. And so like, I think that the team dynamics is something that I'm like super proud of. I was also just chatting with somebody here in the hallway yesterday. Oh, how's business? And oh, what's the team size? And like, you could scale with a small team, like with SaaS and with some of the tools that are out there. I don't think that team size is a really good like metric for us to base success on, because we could scale with a really, really small team. And that's when I think that you gain more confidence in the business as a founder, knowing and seeing the path to growth without having to add many more people to the team. So I love a small team. It keeps it really tight. One of my favorite quotes is, you get problems in your company when you have to take 2 cars to lunch. And right now we could fit all in a minivan.
There you go. I like that. Even in a Model Y Tesla, you can fit 7. So you're golden.
Yeah, there you go.
So you don't have a salesperson or a marketing person, and yet you doubled year over year. I got to believe that has a lot to do with your expertise as a digital marketer. You know email marketing really well, and you know what you're doing to get in front of people digitally, right? Tell me about like why. For me, I'm like, I can't live in I can't imagine a world of growing my businesses without having had sales and marketing staff to help me. But you've pulled it off so far and gotten really far without it. Is that like where you want to go next with some of your hires? What are your thoughts on it?
I think that given our pricing, it doesn't make sense to have someone doing, outbound sales, because like our pricing is $49 a month. So really the growth comes from the ability to deliver on your value proposition. If we say you are going to get exposure, and if you're going to get featured using featured.com, you better get featured using featured.com. So I think our growth has really come from the ability to build a great product and build a great platform. So I would say that we're all in sales. Our engineers are in sales, our product managers in sales. They're also in marketing. So like, it's quintessential definition, product-led growth. That's, I think, propelling a lot of the growth that we're experiencing.
Product-led growth. It scares me from my world, because I've always felt like that's where you're going to live on word of mouth. You don't get to control word of mouth. There's nothing that you can project as far and like depend on and plan for with word of mouth. You don't get to control it. It just comes and goes as it does. Word of mouth is obviously like a big part of what the whole featured premise is. It's that like we're helping you.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. So like, not to discount that we don't have any marketing or we don't have any sales. Like the sales and the marketing is the success of our customers. An element to that where it's unique to our business, because when you get featured in Fast Company or Forbes or whatever, what's your next step? You're going to go share that you've got featured in Fast Company or Forbes. Yeah. And so the more people that we could get featured, the more our business grows, because they share it. And there's a network effect to it. If you get featured and you share it, there's probably 1 or 2 people from your network that are going to go sign up for featured and try it themselves. So really, the product-led growth and word of mouth is directly connected.
You mentioned your price point as a big reason to not have sales. I couldn't agree more. Like, think about how many sales someone has to get, when your lifetime value of a customer, if they stay for a year on average, you're making $600, right? Roughly. So they got to go sell a lot of those before they even cover their own salary to be on your team. But what if their job was dedicated to growing into more and more of the right publishers that want to use your platform to feed new content all the time?
Yeah, we've experimented with it. Like, we've had a lot of people, reach out and be like, oh, you guys have an affiliate program. We'd love to market it. And, it's like, well, we don't have too much of an issue, on the paid side of the platform. That to us is the easier one. The hard side for us is getting the publishers. Now, how do you quantify what a publisher is worth? That's a really tough question. And so we've always shied away from any kind of affiliate programs because of that, because it's been very hard to quantify. We've tested a few things out, but, from a sales side of things as well, it's basically like, well, is hand-to-hand combat, direct outreach the most effective way? Is it a word-of-mouth acquisition strategy? Are partnerships the right way? So we feel that there's better, more cost-effective ways to do it than have a an outbound dedicated person to speaking with those folks. So it's hard.
So how often do you get featured yourself? Like, are you in Fast Company? Are you in Forbes like all the time?
A lot of people would say this, but I'm a very good representation of our customer base. A busy founder that when you have a question that gets into your inbox, do you have the time to answer it? And most of the time I don't. Like, I'm I didn't answer a question today on Featured, I admit it, but I answered one last week and I got featured on Wix.com, and I got, a great backlink back to Featured from a domain rating of a site 95. And obviously that helps. So, I try to use my own product as much as possible because I get some good insights from that. But for the most part, I also feel a little guilty being featured and taking a spot from a customer. So there's a catch-22, but yes, I do answer questions on Featured, and I'm probably featured, once a week.
Do you feel like that's a part of is that part of what's working for your growth?
Yeah, it is. It is for sure, because it's the same thing of why it works for our customers. So if a customer gets featured in the media, you're featured alongside others. People are reading that article. For example, like our content right now is driving over 2 million search visits a month for our publishers. And so if you're featured in some of the most prominent publications that are highly trafficked, that's just referring traffic to your site. So there's an element of the ongoing traffic that builds up that business. There's the backlink elements that help with your own efforts that you're doing on your own foundation. So yeah, like, it definitely helps our business for sure. So I try to have myself answer questions, our whole team answer questions.
Yeah. Cool. I like that. I love that you are eating your own dog food, as they say, right? You using your own platform and doing what customers do in that platform allows you to feel and experience everything they're experiencing. It makes it so you can provide feedback to your engineers and the things they got to go do to improve it. And it also helps you know that it's working and working right and working well. Things that you aren't going to hear in customer feedback unless they're really, really pissed, right? And so that's good. I like that.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that, it's actually really interesting too, because my belief is that the future of marketing is really around the people who make up your organization. How do you activate every single employee within your organization to market your company? Because personal brands are becoming way more important. And so if you're on LinkedIn and you've got an employee, that's active there, that's beneficial for them and for your company. So with Featured, how do we encourage our software engineers to answer questions? How do we encourage our customer service people to answer questions for customer service related, type of opportunities? So all of that stuff just feeds in. It's very exciting to be on the forefront of all that.
So earlier, before we got started, I said the world needs more Brett Farmiloes. You mentioned that you're growing the minivan. You got 3 kids in it now. And so you're growing a family and growing a business. Congrats on that and living the American dream. What is it that drives you to build your own thing and do something that is thinking bigger, like changing the world kind of stuff, versus just going and getting a job. You could get a job so many places. That'd be easy for you. And you'd do well. I don't think you'd even struggle with the like be on your own versus working for the man. Like I think you could do either and do it well. So tell me about that.
That's a really good question. I think that there's many different things that drive myself, drive founders. And let's say that fear is a great motivator. Like
Fear of failure?
Fear of everything, man. Like fear that you're not going to be here tomorrow. Like, and fear that life is short, and fear that, you're not going to accomplish all that you need to. So, if I were to go get a job, my fear would be like that I'm not realizing the full potential that I could unlock if I was, pursuing entrepreneurship. My fear would be if I'm not growing this business, what kind of example am I setting for my 3 kids who are living and breathing entrepreneurship when they're here in the office and seeing what's happening and meeting our employees and stuff like that. So, I would say that it's not all fear. I'm not just sitting here, in paralysis. There's definite benefit from the upside too. Like, are you able to unlock an extreme amount of value for customers, the world, and yourself and your employees and your shareholders? Not in that order, but like, can you create a great life for yourself too? Like that's interesting. So, I think that every day you really struggle as a founder. You really, there's a photo here in our office. I hate it, but it's this photo of like this desert, and like volcanic rock has like gone over the desert. And then at the very end of this, you could see this mountain in the back. And I think of that journey, that photo, as the journey that I'm on every day. It's like walking barefoot over miles of volcanic rock, only to get to a mountain that you now have to scale and get over. And there's no telling what's on the other side of that mountain. That is entrepreneurship. And so what drives me to walk across that volcanic rock and get to the mountain? It's just like, I don't know, there's no other way. You burn the bridges, you burn the boats, you're dedicated on this path until there's a definite ending. And so like, I feel like this is a movie that's worth living, a movie that's worth watching and enjoying. And like, there's no turning back. You don't want to press rewind. You want to just press play.
Just keep going. I like that a lot. And it's true. So you have passion though. Like you see this like rough path and you're going to be barefoot on it. And then there's the mountain at the end, like you described. Like, it's fear of failure, fear of not giving returns to investors, fear of not delivering for your customers, fear of wasting years of life in your career, right? Like
it's also having lived the problem. I think that that's a huge motivator as well. There's 2 dots that I connect in hindsight. One is, the digital marketing agency of having 500 small businesses and the frustration of them and seeing them highs and lows and living those highs and lows and knowing that if they just got the word out about the business, they have a good solution that could service those customers. There's that side. And then going all the way back to when I was first coming out of college, I created this career education startup where I traveled around the country in an RV, interviewing people about their career paths and documented those stories for other college students. And the thing that I learned after 16,000 miles, 38 states, 300 interviews in this RV was that people don't have a meaningful outlet to share their expertise. Mm-hmm. We sat down with everyone from executive chefs to CEOs of companies. They sat down with us for like an hour, 4 straggly college kids who just got out of an RV. And they shared like life secrets with us, like surprising stuff that you're like, man, why are you telling us this right now? Like, and it's because not everyone gets to be on the Startups with Stu podcast. Not everyone gets the microphone. Like, people need an outlet to share their life accumulations. And that's a really cool place to be in, where you can unlock that and give them an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. I love having founders like you on the show where you can share your story. Aspiring founders can learn from your story and and hear how you think. There's so much power in taking the time to hear others' stories and what's working, like you did with Cameo, and just seeing from a distance what worked. You have now mentored new entrepreneurs today that you'll probably never meet, Brett, but someday they'll be on a show going, oh, I listened to this episode where I learned about X, Y, or Z, right? So like I decided to become an expert by signing up for featured.com. By the way, having a succinct message like that one I just shared, I decided I wanted to become an expert, so I went to featured.com. Like, I decided I wanted to get published in Inc. magazine, so I went to featured.com. Like, succinct messages like that, that I don't know how many listeners that listened to the last almost 50 minutes of us talking could have said, like, oh, if I go to featured.com, I'm going to be in Inc. magazine. Or if I went to featured.com, I was going to be in Forbes. Maybe they did. I'm probably not giving enough credit to them and their intelligence, listening and putting everything together as far as what we do or what Featured does. That's an important part of your early stage growth, is being able to like have a very short and succinct message that makes everyone know who you are and what you can do for them really quickly. Guys, if you are a founder, go check out featured.com. I'm not sharing that just because it will help me as an investor. Like, it's definitely not going to move the needle that much for me or Brett, but I promise it will help you. Go and get yourself featured on featured.com. Go find ways to be an expert and get your name out there and get your business out there. Brett, thank you so much for being with us today. As we close, I want to have one last question for you. I'm a college kid, okay? Pretend I'm a college kid. I'm your cousin. I'm like, Brett, I want to be like you someday. I want to own my own business someday. What do I got to go do to make it happen? Like, I don't even know what I want to do yet, but what do I got to go do to become an entrepreneur if that's what I want to do?
I'll share the very first thing that came to mind. And it's something that actually goes back to the road trip that I took. And the road trip that I took in that RV, we got this random message through our website when we were in Tennessee to stop by this fainting goat farm. All right. And so we go to this fainting goat farm and, really take a flyer by going there. It's like 75 goats there. And we're like learning about these fainting goats. And a fainting goat, if you haven't seen it on YouTube, actually faints.
They like fall over like they're dead, right?
Yeah, they get scared. They get a boost of adrenaline to their legs. They freeze up, and sometimes they fall over. And then like 10 seconds later, they'll shake it off and then like keep going. And when the farmer was telling him about this, there was this baby fainting goat that was like nuzzling up against my leg, hanging out. I'm like, well, what's up with this one? Like, why isn't this one scared? And they're like, oh, they haven't learned fear yet. Babies don't learn fear. It's only when they grow and learn about the world that they start to have paralysis. And so like when you're 22 years old and you're aspiring to be a founder, you're a baby fainting goat. You're a baby fainting goat until you're not. And so like what I try to do as a founder is try to be as much of a baby fainting goat as possible, a well-informed baby fainting goat, so that you don't paralyze yourself and get paralyzed with fear and don't take the actions that you need to as an entrepreneur, as a founder in your life. There's a lot of risk that you need to take in this type of lifestyle. And if you let that risk paralyze yourself, you're never going to accomplish what you need to. So I think that's probably what I would say if or to go back and give myself advice.
That's awesome. I love it. Go be like the baby fainting goat that's not afraid. Brett, such a pleasure to have you with me today. Thank you so much for joining and for what you're doing to build America with your business. Folks listening in, go take this new knowledge you have and take your startup to the moon. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Startups with Stu. Hey, founders, entrepreneurs, investors, and other listeners of Startups with Stu. Thank you for listening to this episode today. As I mentioned at the beginning, as I mentioned in the middle, I want to take a second again at the end and say, if you haven't yet and you're considering a podcast, go check out podallies.com. They sure help me a lot with the show. And I am so grateful for all that they do to help me accomplish Startups with Stu and get it out to the world so we can help more founders and take your startup to the moon. Go check out podallies.com and podup.com if you're interested in podcasting at any level.
Thanks for joining me on Startups with Stu. We have big goals to help millions of entrepreneurs. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to share it with someone else that needs to hear it, or leave a review. Remember, success is within reach for those who dare to dream big and take action. Until next time, keep pushing forward on your entrepreneurial journey.